Hi, this is Brian Lucier answering another question from our landlords. This one is, what do you do if my tenants don't pay the rent? Well, just to review what's supposed to happen in the month, the first of the month, the rent is due. Our property management software, the day before the rent is due, is going to send out a tickler email or text saying, hey, tenant, your rent is due tomorrow. Thank you. Have a nice day. Then the first of the month, the rent is due. If they pay the rent, fine, everything's done. If they have not logged in or paid their rent, or we have not recorded it into the system yet, on the second day of the month, they're going to receive the second tickler from our property management software. These are all automated responders that send out automatically if they see that the balance is still zero. Then on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of the month, the accounting department gets involved. They will start sending out texts and emails and notices with increasing urgency all the way up to the 6th of the month. On the 6th of the month, we are going to run the delinquency report list. Anyone on the delinquency report list will receive a 14-day notice, period. So the 14-day notices go out. They're sent by mail, they're sent by email, they are uploaded to the portal, shared with the tenant and shared with the landlord. So everybody knows that the notice has gone out. The tenant then has 14 days to cure that notice. How do they cure the notice? Pay the rent. If the rent is paid within that 14-day period, the notice goes away, the rent gets deposited, and we go back to normal process. If the rent is not received by the 14th day of that notice, so if it went out on the 6th plus 14th is 20th, on the 21st of the month, if we still have not received rent, then we will notify our attorney to file what is called in Massachusetts a summary process. Summary process is a petition to the housing court saying, we would like a hearing, we want to collect the rent or ask for possession. We'll figure that out when we get there, okay? So there, the ball is rolling now. The summary process is filed with the court in normal time. Within 10 days, we have a date from the court responding, saying this will be the date of your hearing. Now, housing court is a little bit different. Everything's being done on Zoom, so we'll see how things go. As soon as we get the date issued back from the courts, then the tenant, the attorney, and ourselves will all go on a Zoom call. The initial hearings for housing court now are all done on Zoom. So all parties will state their case. What we really want to do is arbitrate this case before it goes to a judge. That gives both sides to tell their side of the story. Maybe there's some common ground in the middle that we can work out an arrangement. If we're able to work out an arrangement, great. The arrangement usually comes with some type of payment schedule. If that all works, great. Then we sign the document. We have a court document that is signed by a judge. This is a signed court document endorsed by a judge. That's it. This is the judgment. Whatever happens on that judgment has to follow through. If it does not follow through, then the attorney can go back to court and ask the judge for what is called a writ of execution. That means that the agreement was not upheld and we are seeking for permission to evict the tenant and get possession. Within 10 days after submitting that, the courts will execute the writ and send it to the attorney. When the attorney gets the writ of execution, he has to give it to a constable. The constable is then going to serve the notice to the tenant, notifying them they have 48 hours to remove themselves from the property. If they do not move out within 48 hours, then the constable has to come back with a licensed bonded moving company. It can't be any moving company. The statute and the law specifically dictates it must be a bonded, insured moving company. Constable is going to escort the tenant out of the house. The moving company is going to go in, pack all the belongings, put it in a truck, and bring it to a storage facility. The storage facility has to hold that stuff for 6 months. And all of this, the constable, the writ, all these charges, unfortunately, have to be paid by the landlord. And you do have to store it for 6 months. At that point, you've got possession back of the property. You can go through, get it up and rent it again. And if there are monetary damages, the only route you have at this point is small claims court. So your chances of collecting a judgment in small claims court diminish because your tenant couldn't pay rent in the first place. Now you've evicted them. They have to pay for another apartment somewhere, and now you're trying to get money from them. So let's go all the way back to arbitration. That's where the rubber hits the road. You really want to try to work out an agreement, an arrangement when you have your first Zoom call hearing. If you can work all that out and get it signed by a judge, then that's it. You're done. Whatever you agree to, both parties agree to, that is the judgment. If it doesn't happen, writ of execution turns into a constable turns into a moving truck turns into storage, that turns into a 6-month bill. So hopefully at the beginning of all this process, we can persuade that tenant to pay the rent as they were supposed to. Not the best news, not the best answer, but it is the scenario that you're going to have to deal with as a landlord if the tenant does not pay rent. Hopefully that answers the question on what do you do if my tenant doesn't pay rent? Thank you. This is Brian from Belaire Property Management. I'll see you on the next question.